We're going to look at how a faulty blueprint, drawn up over 100 years ago, might just be the real reason for so much of the conflict we see in the headlines.
Yeah, it's a question I'm sure you've asked yourself when you turn on the news. It feels like this impossibly complex, never-ending puzzle, right? But here's the thing. What if the key to understanding all this chaos isn't about looking at a dozen different fights, but about one single pivotal moment in history?
I mean, look at what's happening right now. You've got Houthi attacks in the Red Sea, totally disrupting global shipping. This isn't ancient history, it's messing with the global economy as we speak.
And then bam, you see this. Iran firing hundreds of drones and missiles straight at Israel. Now, it's easy to see these as separate fires popping up all over the place. But they're not. They're all symptoms. Smoke from a much, much older fire. They're echoes of a past that honestly never really left.
So to really get to the bottom of this, we've got to jump in our time machine. We're going back more than 100 years, to a time when the map of the Middle East, well, it would be almost unrecognizable to us today.
So picture this. It's the early 1900s. For the last 600 years, most of what we call the Middle East has been ruled by one entity, the Ottoman Empire. Now, it was a massive, sprawling empire full of different ethnic groups, different religions, and yeah, it was getting a little creaky, a bit weak at the knees, but it held this incredibly diverse region together under one roof.
And then World War I happens. The Ottomans make a fateful choice. They side with Germany against Britain and France. And that's when those two European powers saw their chance. Behind closed doors, they started sketching out a secret plan, a blueprint, for how they were going to slice and dice the entire region for themselves after the war.
This is it, 1916. The war is still bloody and raging, and a couple of diplomats, one British, one French, are literally just drawing lines on a map. This becomes known as the Sykes-Picot Agreement. And let's be clear, their goal had nothing to do with creating stable nations. It was all about dividing up the loot. They paid absolutely no attention to the people who actually lived there, the different ethnic groups, the religious communities. None of it mattered.
So how do you control these places without officially controlling them? Well, they had a clever little tool called a protectorate. It sounds nice, right? But basically, it means a country is independent in name only. On paper, it's free. In reality, a foreign power, in this case Britain or France, is behind the curtain pulling all the important strings. Okay, so what was really driving all of this? Why draw these specific lines? Well, it was like a recipe for absolute disaster. You had a desperate need for resources, a whole bunch of promises they knew they couldn't keep, and the creation of countries that made no sense on the ground.
This is where it gets just wild. Britain, in its quest to win the war, basically promised the same piece of land to two different groups. On one hand, they told Arab leaders, hey, rise up against the Ottomans, and we'll give you a massive independent Arab superstate. But at the exact same time, they were telling European Jews, support our war effort, and we'll help you create a national homeland in Palestine. You can't make this stuff up. They promised the same land twice. And then you have the one resource that changed everything: oil. Think about it. The new war machine ran on oil. Tanks, ships, planes, they were all thirsty for it. Britain knew it couldn't depend on the US for its supply, not just because it was far away, but because America was, at least publicly, anti-colonial. So getting their hands on the oil fields in the Middle East, that wasn't just a goal, it became the top priority.
And here is that faulty blueprint in action, perfectly illustrated by the creation of Iraq. It was like a bizarre political recipe. Step 1, take the Shia majority province of Basra. Step 2, add the Sunni majority province of Baghdad. Step 3, mix in the Kurdish majority province of Mosul. What do you get? A brand new country called Iraq, where you've just forced together 3 rival groups with totally different histories. It was practically designed for internal conflict from the very beginning. And don't think Iraq was a one-off. Oh no, this was the playbook. They used this same cookie-cutter approach all over the region. That's how we got modern Syria, Lebanon, and Jordan. Every one of these new states was born with these deep, historic divisions literally baked into its DNA from day one. So what happens next? Eventually, the colonial powers pack their bags and go home. But they leave behind this deeply flawed map. The faulty blueprint remains. And what fills that power vacuum? A mad scramble for power. A whole new chapter of conflict begins, this time fought by local and regional players. And the first place to really blow up was Palestine.
You remember those conflicting promises from the British, right? Well, in 1947, the UN tries to clean up the mess with a partition plan. But look at these numbers. The Jewish population got 62% of the land, even though the local Arab population was double their size and got just 38%. The surrounding Arab countries took one look at this and said, no way. As soon as Israel declared its independence, they invaded. And that was the start of the 1948 war.
For the next few decades, the Arab world itself split right down the middle. It was like an Arab Cold War. In one corner, you had Egypt's charismatic leader Gamal Abdel Nasser. He had this grand vision of a modern, secular, unified Arab superstate, free from any outside meddling. And in the other corner, you had the old-school conservative monarchies like Saudi Arabia. They were terrified Nasser's revolutionary ideas would sweep them from power, so they cozied up to the West to protect their thrones. And just when you thought the battle lines were drawn, 1979 comes along and flips the entire chessboard over. The Iranian Revolution. A US-backed king is overthrown, and in his place rises a revolutionary Shia theocracy. This wasn't just a change in government. It was a brand new, powerful force in the region with a mission to export its revolution. And that put it on a direct collision course with, well, pretty much everyone, especially the Sunni monarchies and the United States. This new tension was like gasoline on a fire. It sparked a whole cycle of brutal wars. The central rivalry became Iran versus Saudi Arabia. The Saudis and Kuwaitis were so scared of Iran's revolution spreading that they literally paid Saddam Hussein's Iraq to invade Iran. That led to a horrible 8-year war. And then, and this is the crazy part, Saddam turns around in 1990 and invades Kuwait, the very country that had been funding him.
Just think about this for a second. By swallowing up Kuwait, Saddam Hussein suddenly had his hands on 20% of the entire world's oil. That's not a regional problem anymore. That's a global threat. And there was no way the US and other world's powers were going to let that stand. That single act led directly to the First Gulf War. So after these wars, you get a huge, long-term American military presence in the region. And for a lot of people there, this presence, combined with the unwavering support for Israel and the oil monarchies, created a lot of anger and resentment. And what grows in that kind of environment? New kinds of threats. Groups that aren't countries, like Al-Qaeda, Hezbollah, and the Houthis. They thrive in the chaos of these broken, artificially created states. Okay, so now let's bring it all home. Let's connect these dots from the past, one by one, to the news flashing on your screen today. What you're looking at here isn't just a list of dates. It's a chain reaction. It's an unbroken line of cause and effect. That secret deal in 1916 creates the borders. The creation of Israel in 48 lights a fuse. The Iranian Revolution in 79 changes the game completely. Each one of these moments is a domino that knocks over the next, leading us straight to today. And this is how it all ties together. The headlines you see today, they make perfect sense when you see the history. The horrific conflict between Israel and Hamas, that's the ghost of the 1947 partition, a problem that was never solved. Those Houthi attacks in the Red Sea, that's just the latest chapter in the long proxy war between Iran and Saudi Arabia. And Iran versus Israel, that's the ultimate clash between two very different powers, both born from the ashes of that old colonial system. So that's where we are. We're left with a heavy question, aren't we? So much of the modern Middle East, so many of these nations were literally born from a few careless lines drawn on a map by outsiders who didn't understand the consequences. All the violence, all the chaos we see today, it's the long, brutal inheritance of that faulty blueprint. Which really makes you wonder, can a place whose very foundations were drawn this way ever find a way to build a lasting peace?